Saint Francis Xavier, initially when he was resisting what Saint Ignatius was telling him, they were roommates, and he said, "What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul?" He didn't like it. He wanted to do his own dream. He wanted to be fulfilled in his way in which he saw it. But God had a plan for him. Like Paul also, he had his own plan that, he should conform to the law, and anyone who does not conform to the law, they should be destroyed. Now, when these words were given to him, it took him some time for that seed of the Word of God to fall in him and to grow. Slowly, his eyes began to see what is happening to him. He couldn't see it first. He was intelligent. He could understand things, but he did not know that there were many other manipulations that were going on, and that is what he slowly began to see. That there are a lot of strands of movements in the world, and what is controlling us? And then he asks Ignatius, "Why is it that you were so good to me even though I resisted you?" He says, "It's not that. God is at work in me to bring you to Himself. God knows what plans He has for you, and therefore you have to conform to God's plan for you." He says, "How do I do this?" He said, "It is through prayer." But what kind of prayer? All of us are praying. This prayer is one in which you begin to identify yourself with Jesus. And that is what God Himself led St. Ignatius through a retreat which was for 11 months. And during this 11 months, he discovered how God works in us. He allowed God to take hold of him. And then God molded him. And then he began to see with the eyes of God who dwells in him. And for this reason, he was not against those who are in sin or going their own way. Because these are the ones you have to capture for God. It will take time. Nothing grows fast. If you want to cook food, you can't just think of it and start eating. You have to cook it. You've got to prepare it. So also a tree cannot bear fruit in one day. A child does not grow one day and become big. There is need of time. So one also has to have patience and to nurture things. That's what we are seeing today. Ultimately, we are all created in God for God to be experienced in each other. But what happens to us? We have been given that independence by which we surrender it to God so that God can make use of us, and that way we cooperate with God. Like Mother Mary. What did she do? She says, "I am the handmaid of the Lord. Be done to me according to your word. You make it happen. I will cooperate." And that's what we also have to do. If we really want to live, this is the way. That's what happened to St. Francis Xavier. He slowly began to realize this. So he gave himself to God in the spiritual exercises for a month, and he really said, "I must decrease and you must increase in me." But then what happened? He did not discover it fully. He started working for God, doing things, and even, in such a way that he was completely exhausted. And so the first reading is telling us, when God is at work in us, you will get wings as of eagles, and you will fly. You will work and not tire. You will walk and not faint. So this kind of energy of God begins to flow through us. Have you experienced it? Of course. But you are not aware of it fully. Because it depends on your attitude. Once you have this attitude of Mother Mary, that we are servants of God, and that God is at work through us and the way He wants it, then you will see this will be our experience. And the Lord Himself says, "Come to me, all you who are burdened and struggling, and I will give you rest. Shoulder my yoke upon you. Be a partner with me. You don't have to do independently for me. Lord, did I not do this? Did I not this? Go away from me, you sinners, you evildoers." That's what He said to us. So keep that in mind and let us ask the Lord to change our attitude, the way we do things. Better still, if you look at our body, all the parts are aligned to the body and they are available for me to use them. So each one of us has the same way. Now look at the bigger picture. God, in His Son Jesus, has begun to recall us back to that original plan of His. And so let us be in Jesus, and that's why we are all called Christians. And we are each one members of the same body of Jesus. Then our attitude towards each other will be different. And that is what happened to St. Francis Xavier. When he came back after his sickness in Bologna, he opened his eyes further, and that is the reason why he was able to give himself completely, relentlessly, working the whole day and praying the whole night. That is how St. Ambrose lived. He lived in 337. He was born, and he died in 397. His father was in the Roman Empire, and he was one of the governors of Gaul, which consisted of France, Spain, and Britain, UK, whatever it is. So he was the governor. When he died, the family moved back to Rome. This youngster was very intelligent, and he did his secular studies, he did his law, and the emperor liked him very much. He made him governor when he was only 33 years old of a place in the north, and he lived in Milan. Now, when he lived in Milan, there was a problem that cropped up. What was the problem? You see, there were different ways of looking at Jesus. There was an Arian heresy in the church, and there were a lot of people who went by it. And so they were just believing in the different aspects of Jesus. How can God become like us? He cannot be like us. So there were some such misunderstandings, but they were very strong. So they decided, when the bishop died there, they wanted to choose another bishop. Now those who were of this Arian outlook and those who were orthodox, they began to grumble and fight with each other. And he went and he consoled them. He says, "No, this is not the way to go." What was he? He was not even a Christian. He was only a catechumen. That means you were just learning about the faith. And then when he was trying to do this, there was a small child who cried out saying, "Ambrose, bishop." They all took it up and made him the bishop. And he said, "No, I cannot be. I'm not a Christian yet." But they made him the bishop. So he got converted. He got baptized. He studied. Since he was intelligent, he did his theology immediately, and then he was ordained, and he was consecrated bishop in 374. Now when he took over, he gave all his private property to the poor, and his big lands which he had to the church. He himself was very abstemious. He did not eat much, very frugal, lived very simple. But since he was intelligent, he fought against these heresies. So he wrote a lot. Besides, he also made it clear that the church has to be governed by itself, not by the emperor or the government. No, the church will have its own government. But the church will be protected by the state. And so he also did a lot to the liturgy, and he did chants and wrote a lot of hymns. He was the one who influenced St. Augustine. When St. Augustine came there, he saw this great man of learning. Augustine was also very intelligent. And when he listened to his sermons, he was really taken up. They were very succinct, to the point, and very expressive. That is what changed him. And he converted and became, though his mother was a Christian, he was also a Christian. He was also following another kind of heresy. He changed and he took up to orthodox outlook. So my dear sisters and brothers, God has got a plan for each one of us in His body. So let us ask Him to make it clear to us. How will we know it? I've always been telling you, remain centered on Jesus within you. Not on your thoughts, not on your feelings, but to Jesus. And if you remain at each breath united to Jesus, when you breathe in, His goodness fills you. When you breathe out, empty His goodness, empty everything that is in you, and He will put it right for us. Let's try it out. Hold your hands like this. Keep them in your lap. Keep your back straight. Close your eyes. And experience breath filling you from your toes right up to your head. And emptied from head to toe when you breathe out. Relax completely in it. Because you're relaxing in God. Come to me. Yes, at every breath we are coming to Him, and I will give you rest. So surrender everything, your body, your mind, your spirit. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. And you will find rest for yourself. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. Because God in Jesus will work through us, guiding us with His Spirit. Lord, thank you for this experience. May we keep intensifying it at every night before we sleep and when we wake up, so that the whole night you will be able to remold us and reformat us to conform to you.